Baby, can't you hear my call? I can't stand.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Sims. Welcome to another edition of the Hey Now podcast with my sons, Jarrett and Jordan. This week's guest, John Buck, and our aim is to look at the pivotal moments that led to success of all our guests that come on the show. But first, we want to start off with something that I find believable. Sports injuries. Joe Buck, a guy who I don't really know. I've met him three times, but I've been a fan of his work. And his father, Jack Buck, is one of the all-time greats. Wild story. He's playing golf. He and his wife go out and play some golf, and he's on a tee box. And his wife, who was a gymnast and a cheerleader, and now Michelle Beisner, a broadcaster at ESPN, as he said, on the 10th hole, he's in a tee box. And there's his wife, just been a little bit off, I guess, to the left. And she's a gymnast, and she's doing a handstand. And he hits the ball, and he yanks it, hits her in the ankle, and damages her ankle. Bone break, nerve damage. Shattered, yeah. I mean, shattered. She's on the IL for a long time. As a matter of fact, she's undergoing surgery to get some nerve damage complete. There are all kinds of wild golf stories. I think that is now the new clubhouse leader for me. What do you guys think?
Well, wish her well on a recovery. I'm just trying to picture it. How does it work? She's doing a handstand with her legs in the air. Ball hits her legs. She's saying, like, hit it through my legs. Let's see how accurate you are with the drive.
Or just a good old shake hippopotamus.
Right? I don't know. But you know what always came to mind for me was I thought it was weird when you'd see a pitcher get on the DL, or I think Jose Reyes, if I'm not mistaken, one of these injuries like cutting a grapefruit, 14-day DL.
Yeah.
One of those types of things. What do you think?
It's a lot of knife accidents with pitchers. I feel like it's always pitchers. And then there's been some drone ones recently, which have landed guys on the IL. I know. Cutting your, like, basically the tip of your finger off.
When the drone comes back and they try
to catch it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could take off 2 layers of skin on your forefinger, you can't spin it. You can't throw that slider. But drones, this. You know what? It's also it makes me think of just how it's in guys' contracts where you can't play pickup basketball because
you can't jump out of airplanes.
Yeah, that too. But it's always the weird ones. Hey, Dad, do you remember, since you bring it up, we could always just cut this, but Jordan, do you remember what happened when I went skydiving? Do you remember I told you what Dad was saying?
You landed. I know that.
I landed. I was good. It was a great time. On the way there, we were driving. Jamie and I got pulled over because I was speeding, so I almost actually didn't get to go skydiving. Luckily, they didn't Tyreek Hill me. But what happened ultimately, week before I was good on the skydive, Dad, you were sending me messages of all the people who've ever died skydiving to try and dissuade me from doing it. And your tactic, I had it in my head I was going to do it.
He's got the Citizens app for skydiving accidents.
Yeah, right. And I probably MF'd you for about a half hour too. I mean, what the heck? Are you kidding me?
When you watched the video, you were quite excited.
It was cool. We had Led Zeppelin on it. You had a Led Zeppelin tune.
That's funny, the things you remember. There you go.
Yeah, unbelievable. How about some of these other and the great history of accidents to athletes? My man Steve Sparks does color Houston Astros radio. He once damaged his shoulder cartilage trying to rip a phone book in half. I'm going to see him soon. I got to get him. I want to get that full story on that. That is remarkable. The great Gus Frerotte was having a decent time, quarterback to the Redskins, then the Redskins. Remember, he throws scores a touchdown, and he goes in the end zone. I remember it went right to left, and he gets the wall, and it might have been Giant Stadium, and headbutts the wall and misses the second half with a concussion.
Yeah.
At least Baker Mayfield was, when he had no helmet, he's still headbutting a person. He headbutted Gus Frerotte a wall. You got to be really hyped. You got to be really hyped to headbutt a wall.
Another one, kicker, Bill Gramatica, Martine's brother. It's a big 42-yard field goal. Jumped up in the air. Remember this? Came down in celebration.
Or ACL,
didn't stick the landing. I remember. Yeah, he did the ACL.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then how about this one? Glenn Allen Hill, who had some good years as a slugger and had a nice run with the Yankees. He had a nightmare about spiders, and supposedly, it happens. You're sleepwalking and going through his house, trying to escape the spider, crashed through a glass table.
No, as someone who's has sleptwalked in the past myself, I had an injury in college. Granted, it was probably involved with a few too many beers, but I kind of gashed open my elbow sleepwalking in college, and I had to go to the emergency room the next morning. So that was fun. Dad, you have any injuries like that? Some random?
No, the only thing I remember when we started off with the Joe Buck, I remember when I was just learning to play golf and I was about 13, 14. And I was with my father and his crew. And I was standing a little bit in front of them. And, hey, man, you got to move. And I didn't. I just sort of like froze. Hey, man, you got to get out of the way. He lit me up in front of everybody. Get the hell out of the way. You can get hit. Like somebody can miss him. Yeah, that's the only one. I had a shoulder injury playing football at a hook and ladder play. I'm running down the sideline, landed on my shoulder and messed up my collarbone. One other injury, Lionel Simmons, a great player at LaSalle University in Philly, not far from where I grew up. Tendonitis, rookie season, playing Nintendo Game Boy. You can't make this stuff up, man.
That's a lot of gaming. That's a lot of gaming right there.
Got to beat the high score, man. Come on. Tetris? Alleyway, what was he playing?
Man,
man. We're talking like 90s era. So, what are you jamming on that you playing that much?
Yeah.
You know what had me back then was Shinobi on the Game Gear. For any of you 80s babies, Shinobi was the John.
That was a good game.
I don't remember that one. All right. Injuries.
I do have an injury. Dad, I can just think of like a just crazy injury, and it wasn't. This is just a function, I think, of getting older during COVID. I was sitting in my in-laws' basement recliner watching old episodes of The Sopranos, and Tony Soprano eats steak after steak in each episode. That whole cast ate a ton. It was either somebody getting whacked or lots of food being consumed.
No lie.
And I woke up because I fell asleep in the chair. And then the next thing I knew, I could not move. So half of COVID, I was laid up. Jamie, who's my wife, who's, more than 100 pounds lighter than I am, trying to lift my legs, do traction and, fix my back while I was drinking some bourbon and just try to get right. And then the other half of COVID, I was like extreme because you guys know how I am. I was just on the health kick, trying to get right, get healthy, lose the weight, and led to my marathon run, which I'm actually rocking the shirt, Philly Marathon. Let's go.
Hey,
man.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, I'm gonna stick my chest out. I earned that.
No, you can get chesty on that. That's cool.
Fucking Jonas Salka-backs.
Jonas Salka-backs.
Unbelievable. Hey, our interview for this show is John Buck, a guy I met when he spent a little bit of time with the Mariners. I want to say it was a 14 and or 15 season. Had a nice career as a journeyman catcher. A lot of compelling stories that he's gonna share with us. All right, we want to welcome to the Hey Now podcast the guy that played for the Seattle Mariners. That's where I got to know him back in 2014. He's an MLB All Star back in 2010. The quintessential glue guy in all the clubhouses that he worked in. 7 teams in his 11-year career. And I tell you what, he does a great job working with first responders in the area of mental health. John Buck joins us. Bucky, what's happening, pal? I'm doing well, doing well.
18 years, huh?
Yeah,
18? Dude, you're in the wily veteran territory now. Yeah. That's where you're at. That's where you live, Dave.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. I totally agree. Hey, to get into this conversation, I was Jared. He really piqued my interest. Obviously, we want to talk about baseball and everything, but I want to jump right into the first responders thing, man, because I think we don't hear a lot about that. And you're a retired baseball player, and now you're doing something that's really helpful to people, not just entertaining them as a baseball player, but dude, you're helping to get lives straight, man. How'd you get into that?
Well, one, obviously, if you do source of work like that, there's some deep meaning. I had a brother that committed suicide, and then had a mom that battled mental health as well. So, and I was put in an environment, I think, drafted out of high school, and was lucky enough to have Bob Tewksbury. I had
Nice.
Jim Fannin at my beck and call. I had a sports psychologist that I was able to lean into in things. And then my wife was in the NIC unit while my kid, and she had preeclampsia, and they're like, my boys are almost dying while I'm playing in Kansas City. So it was like learning how to deal with stress and then go perform like 3 days later as her and the boys are still in the hospital. Like, how do I deal with that? And then I got some performance coaches to learn that, and then also had a little bit of the yips myself and learned what it was from, because I worked with Ryan Harrison from Slow the Game Down, and I worked with him cognitively and also some physical things where I was getting, you hear terms like brain fog and stuff like this. I for sure had it. I remember sliding in the second, getting hit, and then going to the All Star game, and had these series of things that make post-traumatic stress for a ball player, where you call the yips. That's what was manifesting. I wasn't aware that I was shouldering so much stress, because I was just going to perform. And I think what I relate with these officers is that's what they do. They don't spend enough time rest and recovery. They don't spend time pre-gaming like I did. See, I think the things that I was blessed with, I had a good surrounding pregame, because I was instructed to. I was fed to think like a champion, act like a champion. My mom and my brother didn't have that. The police officers and stuff that I see come in and do a hitting lesson, and we pregame and we talk about, they start telling me like, I'm not going to hit. There's no, like a lady, a 911 operator. No, I'm not getting in that cage. To like, I'm telling, Pam, you need to get out of there. We got to let the other officers hit, at the end of the thing, because it was like her self-talk in pregame was like, oh, I'm going to hit 10 out of 10 this time. All the way from like, you're not getting me in that cage. That's the drastic difference I think our pregame is for us. As if you're going to do the hardest thing in baseball, I saw that this thing that I was doing that I didn't realize I was doing, it's a super skill for normal people. And us, professional athletes, I don't think we realize we go into this. So that skill for the officers, just to pregame, and then why they're in game to understand what's going on. I mean, some of these stories that I get to hear, I was scared about an 0 for 4, losing my job, not my life, or this child,
about that,
or this human I have in my hands.
Yeah.
I didn't have to have that type of in game, and then of course post game, which I kind of alluded to. I think it's the most important. I think we go so hard. I don't think I didn't do enough rest and recovery. There's the things that are in the clubhouse, but rest and recovery is also how I'm transitioning into the home. And obviously with first responders, and 0 for 4, the thing I kind of simulate 0 for 4 being or whatever, that first 90 seconds as you walk into the home, my kids, they don't care if I went 0 for 4. I want to be just the best performing father I could be. And that first 90 seconds going in the home, those are, just for some examples, there's a slew of with, our first responders with the stress they deal with. It's not baseball. It's not the yips. It's not these stresses that we deal with. But when I can bring that into the room, and there's this elephant in the room with sports psychologists and psychologists, right? Who do I talk to? I don't want to go tell Dayton Moore I got the yips.
Not even close. No chance.
Although Dayton Moore's the type of guy that might look at it, right, and say, all right, let's get you help. But I'm not going to go tell him that. I'm going to go tell the sports psychologist. So that's kind of the message to help destigmatize inside of their clubhouse.
Yeah.
That's part of our program is, hey, this mental health thing is not mental health because I'm going crazy. It's so that I can perform. And if I have this pregame, in-game, post-game practice dialed in, I'll know when I need to get help, because I'll have my routines and rituals and practices. If I'm like, hey, I want to harm this person, which would be my case sometimes, right? We've saw me go after Renelvis in a dugout, and I share that, right? We share that, learning how to deal with stress better, and I share that with the police. They get that. that's like a civilian, this thing, and I learned how to control myself. Not don't punch your teammate on national TV, or don't escalate the scenario. So I can use these things that are in the public eye that they relate to, but that I've also demonstrated using my sports psychologist to get me back to being on
Yeah.
an all-star almost.
I tell you what, that's a strong approach, dude. And to be able to share your experience. I mean, I like what you said about the 0 for 4. It is so different from what these cats have to go through, man. That's unbelievable.
And it's really cool too. Is some of the guys that I have coming in and transition program for the players, the old ball players, is transitionally hearing their stresses and seeing what they dealt with, what we just kind of spoiled ball players just got done dealing with.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, it's helped formulate what I'm doing now. You know, sitting here with my high school behind me, having a couple jobs that I turned down that were baseball jobs, but taking away from my family. But the value system I learned from doing this is like it's really rooted me, and it's hit home because it's real work, like you said.
Yeah,
it's not just baseball.
I can see it in your face and hear it in your voice that you're in the spot where you want to be and you need to be, right?
Correct. Right where God has me. Actually, and I was excited to tell you about this, Dave, because some of this work and the Level Up program that I've been working with Brian Harrison, it slowly came down, and Dr. Allison Dake, it's got us into some awesome relationships with Rise to Greatness. Have you heard of that, Dave? I've been working with them, with the Ford family, where we go in. We got to go to the Bo Dome out in Chicago recently. So it's using our platform to level the playing field. These kids nowadays, you have to go to a PBR, you have to go to PG, you have to go to these high dollar events
the showcase,
to get credentials.
You're talking about the show. Yeah. You're talking about the showcase, right?
Yeah. And you have to start to build this data credential, stuff that's my exit velocities, my spin rates, my times, you got to have that. And guess what? That costs money, Dave.
Yeah.
And if they can't get that in the inner cities, it's they're at a disadvantage. And you're telling me we want to have more colored players?
Hey, man,
do better things.
Hey, we're getting smoked. We're getting absolutely smoked in that department, man. We're leaving all the athletes going to football and basketball, and then we're wondering why we. I mean, come on.
I want to be competitive. We get to play in the World Baseball Classic, correct?
Okay.
Let's be competitive. Let's take it to that angle. Who cares? And this is, I think, why you and I got along, Dave. I see people, and I see this. All right, we're gonna compete here in the United States. Well, guess what? Some of our players we need to develop is inner city kids that don't have the opportunity. Right? So
totally.
Some of these things, and hats off to Curtis Anderson and CC. They're all over this. They've been on some of the phone calls. I know this is an area where they're looking to where we can kind of level the playing field and start giving these kids, or at least the knowledge of, hey, you need to build these credentials. This data right here that you kids produce. This data helps you get sight unseen scholarships.
I'm really glad to hear you were working with.
That's changing generational wealth.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you're working, with Curtis and Cece, man, because the two forces together, you cats, these two groups, Jared. I mean, this is just we were talking to Curtis about this not that long ago. So yeah,
absolutely.
I think Kevin. I mean, they're pretty focused now. Barring knowing whether they can, the Players Alliance knowing exactly where they need to go, their honey spot, and how they can make the most impact. And obviously, those two they're leading that crew for a reason. They're good at what they do.
Hey, John, I want to go back a second. So you said, was it Pam in the cage? Yeah. Who was in the cage?
Oh yeah. It was. I'm using.
Okay, let's stick with Pam. Let's stick with Pam then. So take us through though. Hold on. Take us through what does a day look like when you're running your program and helping responders with mental health? Where does she start? How does she get better? What does she taught through the course of a day?
Okay. Well, we did a sheriff's department. It's down in southern Utah here, and the whole department came down. So that's 911 operators to everybody in the department. So She came down, and it was a 911 operator, right? The lady that gets 911, and she was like, "Nah, I don't do this. I sit on a phone, I talk to people, I'm good." And there's stations that you come through. So they come in, we give them a breakfast, we kind of tell them a little baseball story, and they're kind of like, "Oh, we got some gloves and a bat." We got Warstick, who is Ben with
Warstick, Jack White's
I'm
company.
into the lizard skin, you know.
Okay. Jack
Yes.
White, huge
So
baseball fan, and my daughter's
Ben,
6 and 4, love the white
yeah,
stripes. So yeah, yes.
yeah, he's a stud. He's smart. Ben, so it's
Yep.
Ben, Ian Kinsler, and
Oh, Kins.
Jack. So
Shout out
yeah,
to Jewish
Kinsler
ball
is,
players. Kinsler's a member of the tribe.
Yeah.
That's
Team
exactly right.
Little, that's right.
Good
Team
dude.
Israel, right?
Good dude.
So they teamed up as Warstick, obviously, and they get this bat that has this message and this pregame, like, "Hey, we're going to go do this," kind of like an at bat, like you would be going to the game. I kind of expressed at breakfast, "Hey, what are you guys thinking?" Kind of show them like they got a lot of thoughts coming, just like a child would come into a lesson with me or anybody. What's this coach going to say? All these things coming in. If you think about performance, that happens. So what I try to do is set them up for this hit. So Pam, when she came in, her thoughts were, "No way, no how, no chance. I'm not getting in there. That thing's coming 80 miles an hour." She was looking at all these score breakers, taking her out of the zone or flow state. Because remember, that's what this program's for. We use hitting or sport to attract the zone or flow, this whatever you want to call it. I just want you to be your optimal human performance. So she came in, and the first part of it pointed out to her as it went through the stations. So she goes to me, a hitting station. She told me how she couldn't and wouldn't hit the ball. Then she goes to the hit tracks machine, which gives you your hit matrix and we put a little more data into your brain so that you start to think about that. So then that will catch into your head. I was only 9 out of 10. In case of a ball player, this is where kids start thinking about their average. So that's that station. For Pam, it was like I was 1 out of 10, or I barely, for her, she didn't even want to get in. It was throwing 8. So then she went to Ryan's station,
Doing the
which is a
string
lot of the
stuff
eye
and all of
cognitive
that
things
stuff
where your
Ryan
eyes
does. Yeah.
drift. Yeah, eye measurements, a lot of that. And really what that's doing is he's firing that up. Your eyes are the first thing it's your brain that's seeping out of your nugget, really. And that's connected to your brain. And what that does is we're reprogramming how your serotonin and all that's happening in your prefrontal cortex. Because look, like my yips, I'd never thrown it away, but it was like, what up? And it would physically, and Dave, you got to see it, and I talked to you.
I had it for a little bit. Yeah.
How am I doing that? Like what? Like physically, something's happening. So my interest, right? That happened. How is that physically happening to me? I'm the most athletic person to walk the earth. How am I? I've never thrown one away. Something's happened. So we kind of induce that with these exercises in the eye because Ryan knows how to do it. He's works with the likes of some people who had some concussion things and have brought them back, or have had the yips, brought them back, because it is this rewiring. So now if you have this officer come in and experience this thing, a lot of times this is where we get them. We had several of them with suicide ideation talk about it then, bring this up because what it induces in them, tracking, doing this, because you don't realize physically what's going on and what it's connected to your brain and the dopamine, what happens and goes up and down. So that's where we kind of induce that. From there, we go to a hard things cage. Last year, the last one we did, I had a Josh Berkman, who's an MMA fighter of mine, buddy of mine. We grew up together, or same baseball team. But I wanted the officers to realize this time, I think the next one I have a golfer, professional golfer, because I want them to, we're using baseball, but this is where I bring in another sport. Maybe throw Bailey in some free throws of what does he do pregame, while he's shooting, and then right after. Because I remember Steph Curry came into a clubhouse, I can't remember where, and he talked about when the ball leaves his hand, what he says to himself when it's never, he knows whether it made it or not. it doesn't ever. He never. Oh,
So you're talking about positive,
It
sort
doesn't.
of not affirmations, but
That
positive
never.
self-talk.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
not only that, Jared.
Yeah.
Like with purpose. Oh, like you see a slider in the dirt, or he misses that free throw. He sees it and look at him. He drains 100 nothing but net before he walks out of the gym every night he plays, because he replays that moment. He knows there's never a doubt. He only perfects that he's the person to take the shot.
Wow.
Like, dude, can you fathom that? So if you start to change that thinking, when I foul a ball off, like I foul it off and it's like, oh, Verlander, screwed. I can tell you, I didn't do that. That's probably why I hit what I hit.
You'd like to do a do-over, right?
A couple times, like, give me one season. I think I did it one season because I had Vernon Wells and Joey Bats and Aaron Hill in my ear. I did that with them in 2010.
Toronto.
It clicked. And then I had Cito Gaston telling me, you're awesome. You run my team. You're the man. That's stuff I didn't do.
Yeah.
And then they did it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
three great guys there too, man. Great guys.
And they're students of the game. And so this positiveness was in a direction of like what Steph Curry was talking about. So I was seeing my failures, and every time I saw it, I was reprogrammed to make a success. To be prepared plan of now that inks and that or whatever is gone, because I know I'm prepared. Yeah. Like you buy into it. And so seeing the officers do that, and so as soon as they do the hard things and kind of activate that, I don't care what sport. They reduce their thoughts. We put them in a cage with Josh Berkman. They learn how to punch and be in the moment with a steady mind and a steady gaze as they're in a fight. So how to fight and steady gaze.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and you're talking about, like we were talking about earlier, man, it's about lives. It's about lives that you're affecting in a very positive way. Boy, I tell you what, bless your heart on that.
Well, Dad, I got a question before we move on to another subject on that. So, it's easy, John, to minimize sort of big leaguers as being, your struggles if you have an 0 for 4 compared to first responders. But at the same time, you touched on it in such a way that there is a real stigma in letting it be known that you are suffering with, anything that would be under the bucket of mental health issues. So could you talk about that stigma? I'm interested to just learn from the eyes of a big leaguer what it's like, what you think might have been a situation you dealt with different from other guys who've experienced mental health issues or yips. It could be any number of things, but I mean, how it runs the gamut. What is the stigma? How do you overcome it? And what's the current landscape of baseball looking like on that front?
Well, far as we'll do one with officers, right? For example, I think just our awareness and our acknowledge to not be afraid to talk about it, the positive things or the positive way to help, the way to move forward, right? Because when my brother and my mom, it was don't talk about it, like, there was no destigmatize or anything like that, right? Because there is all those bad reasons for that. But I think, what can we do beforehand? Like I said, there's a couple of things that we did that we induced that kind of triggered those post-traumatic stress people. If we have routines and rituals in our performance pregame and in-game and post-game, and we have some of those things that conjure up in there, those are red flags. We say, oh, there's a little attention to that. And if we can have this practice within that, and we can't handle it, then that's when we need to seek outside help. So when we were able to induce the kind of the post-traumatic stress thing with these officers, they had this reaction where they had, they either convulsed something or they got emotional. Yeah. They weren't able to control that, right? So they had this practice of routines or rituals where they can self-regulate it. You know what I mean? So having routines and mental health practice to help self-regulate yourself, a lot of times I think that ends up helping a lot more than people realize, because just saying, recognize it, looking at, sitting with it and saying, all right, I experienced that, I went through that. And with the officers, and what they found is the leader, that's like their superior, how they engage that conversation takes this.
If the leader's open and receptive, that changes everything.
Yeah, correct. So this is why I said date more earlier. right? Because there's a little window into that. So as the officer's like superior before goes up to the guy that may be having a burning baby, say to a first responder, right? He's holding him. He goes up there, he's burning baby. That would screw anybody up. Old school guy. Hey, you're good. Pass him on. You're good, right? You're good. All right. All right. Go back out there. That sounds like an old school clubhouse too.
No
I know.
doubt
I've
about
been
it.
a part of it. No doubt.
Yeah, seen it a million times.
Correct. Now making it Dayton Moore.
Who was the
like
GM when you were?
I say that because when Brooke went to preeclampsia, my twins are in the NIC unit, and I needed extra days to be with my wife. It was not even a question. I'm so lucky to have that man. I feel tearful now because he thought about my family. He knows that we're more than people. We're more than a ball player.
Yeah.
I'm more than a baseball. I have Brooke. I have the boys. I have responsibilities, and that's writing. And if I can't cover that, if I can't handle that emotion, I need to get routines and rituals to get me right. And Dayton can recognize that, obviously, with family and stuff. He was able to extend that and make sure I was right.
You're lucky.
You know, and then
you're lucky, John.
Because it's that bereavement list and that stuff. It's serious, but it's not. I think that adds to the stress because it is the most important thing. That's how we're wired. That's why we're the best in the world at doing that. But then when it becomes with family and this and a game and having a leader like Dayton Moore to say no, John, because I would have kept going.
Right.
I would have kept going with my kids in the NIC unit, and it takes your leader to step up. So it takes this officer and the superior to say, hey, that was pretty screwed up. I've had partners, I've had superiors, I've had this before, and these are maybe some. So just engaging with the conversation and making it normal to not be normal and having outlets, making that the normal conversation is the start of kicking the stigma in the clubhouses because I lived through it. That's how I saw it happening in our clubhouses.
So how'd you, and Dayton Moore, by the way, was the GM. Matter of fact, when they won the World Series, when Kansas City won the World Series in 15, you talked about that experience with your wife and your kids. You talked about your brother. At what age?
Mm-hmm.
When did all of that happen? And obviously, it's a major effect on you. I mean, geez, and I give you credit for being able to come up with your head above water right now. You know.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, people around me, right? I had a coach. I was with the Astros at the time. I had a coach, Jayhawk Owens. I remember her name. He was the first catcher for the Rockies. You remember that?
Yeah,
so
a little bit. Yeah.
He was the cat's meow, and him and his wife. He just got done playing. It was his first coaching job, and I was his first catcher. Right? And it was in Battle Creek, Michigan, and I just remember just thinking the guy walked on water just because he was just got done being a big leaguer. I'm this young high school kid or whatever. And then my brother committed suicide. And I remember I went home and I did it. And then when I came back, went home and dealt with the funeral and did that stuff, was numb. But when I came back, I remember him just like having the pregame talk as we got ready or whatever, and getting emotional. I know that's why I was able to handle it. He normalized the conversation for me to feel grief so I could handle it.
Right.
And naive, I didn't know what I was going through. I didn't realize what he was gifting me because I was able to learn that stuff, from a person that was more than a coach in a clubhouse.
Wow.
I was in a super vulnerable time. Brother committed suicide. Mom wasn't okay, right? She was alcoholic, drugs to deal with my brother. So it was like, when's she next? I had that. So he was that. Yeah, he was that dude. And that was the guy that I looked up to. Yeah. So he was able to make it normal, but he made it normal, but he made it so that I could get strength out of it.
Yeah. You had the right guy at the right time, man. That's a blessing and a half. You got lucky.
Yes. He's not to mention he made me a better baseball player too.
There you go.
and some of this stuff transitioning, coming home after a good game or a bad game, how I talk to my wife and that, that still has a lot to do with him, and it's rooted who we are. And so if you're able to change those routines and rituals, you know, the dopamine game that we're playing, if you can have those set in stone, you'll know when it goes wackadoodle. You know, those are kind of things that have helped me be performing and helped me get through it, so that I didn't become that statistic. I became the other one.
Just the fact that, you know, your brother, you honor him. You know, you mentioned having been given the space to grieve before, and then it seems like you've emerged with the mindset of honoring him. Do I have that right? And, you know, how do you go about doing that on a day-to-day basis? Because it seems like it's something that's very core to who you are.
Well, I think too is I look at the things that affected my brother, and it is coaching this high school team now. Holy moly, they got crap that I would have been screwed. I'll tell you that. I would not have had the mental capacity these kids have to deal with now. So if it's getting harder, and I have these tools, and I've been blessed to just play around in this game and make people better, literally in my position, just to make people around me, I feel like I get to do what I was good at on the Mariners. Yeah. I think I'm good at making people around me better. That's how I would describe myself as a catcher. For pitchers, I just feel like I got a much larger pitching staff now. Boy, that's kind of in my head now.
Yeah. Now, did you take any psychology courses, or as a catcher, did this, was it something that you were blessed with, or you developed it? Because, I mean, you're dealing with, you know, when you were dealing with a team, a pitching staff, I mean, 9-10 guys, and you got 9 or 10 knuckleheads out there, you know, and you got to know each one. You got to have a, you know, a Rolodex on each guy. Do this, can't do this with him. You know, that whole thing.
Yeah. My dad was a PA. He's one of the first PAs, like when they had the PA program, it started at the VA hospital up here at the University of Utah. My dad was in that group. His best friend is Ron Kettleson. His wife, he was also a PA and a doctor. He kind of runs around, does the military stuff.
Back up for a second. What's a PA? Tell me what a PA again is.
Physician assistant.
Gotcha. That's what I thought. Okay.
And they before they were very generalized. They did all of them. Now they're very like psychology, whatever. But my dad's best friend, his wife was the head of the psychology department at the University of Utah, Molly Kettleson. So I was like at a really young age doing gymnastics, right? So going to the gym every day, did gymnastics. I was watching my Uncle David at Nebraska, and he brought me home this psycho-cybernetics, like how to train. Yeah. And then having these very weird adult conversations about mentally preparing, how to, like, why waste energy with stuff. But yeah.
And how old are you at this time? How old are you at this time?
I was 9, 10, 11.
Yo.
So I said, weird adult conversations. So it was like I grew up old, and then when I had kind of the rough growing up teenage years when my mom and dad were doing, because my dad was always gone at the hospital, mom was, you know, like every story, I feel bad, alcoholic, whatever. It made it so that I looked at that different, you know. Then it didn't feel like it was something that I did. It was like I knew that this was my parents' problem, where I know at a young age when you're going through that.
You externalized it?
So and one of those sweet spots. Yeah. So I think I was able to deal with that very maturely just because I had those conversations with Molly and Ron Kettleson in young age. And so it made me an observer of what's going on. So even in a dugout, on a team, you've seen me, Dave, I like to go up and label and build a relationship with each player and the whole team, so that I can make them better. Not only that, they can make me, because I believe energy and stuff is all a part of that. And especially you're on a good team, you feel that. I mean, every single person is holding for everybody. Yeah, and if you can get that going, that's the coolest thing in the world. It's infectious. And I feel like if I can induce that a little bit in each clubhouse with the first responders, or even here at the high school level in Utah, then I'm doing a little bit of what I got to do at the big leagues every day.
The one other thing you were talking about first responders. What about military dudes, guys maybe who have seen combat and whatnot? I mean, how do you help them?
Yeah, Yeah, we started talking with Hill Air Force Base here. We
Okay.
have some scenarios in this training I just got with this AI company. EII is the name of it, and they do this virtual training like on. So you go through the hitting stations like I described you. Now there's a station where you go in these real live scenarios. And up in Utah, one of them, just because Dave, we would like to talk about this because I like to go head on, is they're having some diversity problems here in Utah at Hill Air Force Base. They don't feel comfortable going in to this white community of Utah, right? So they have these scenarios where they can go in and they can induce these conversations, make them feel more uncomfortable with these conversations when they go out into the city, but also from a marker of the Hill Air Force Base, it gives them a way to be able to check the different. What can we do in our community to make this a little more diverse? And so that part of it is really cool because I know it's making a large community that's up at Hill Air Force Base more comfortable just interacting inside their community just with this app to deal with the social interaction on certain things like simulator. So and apparently something like when we react, like if I'm reacting to you on the screen, I'll react to your emotions a little bit. The science behind this AI, it helps them kind of intellectually understand what they're reacting to because it gets different responses. And as a first responder, when you're dealing with people in distress or understanding that and reading that, having race and knowing all those different spaces that you live in, it makes people feel more comfortable and hopefully, and it has shown, helps them get out into the community and feel a lot more comfortable just having a hitting lesson in that part of the thing. And that's one of the and that's one of the things. And at the same time, it's helping this airman work on his right banks because like him, his last right bank, maybe he got shot at like where we have the yips. That's you start operating in the brain the same spot. That's the same space he's operating on his bank rights. Because now if I'm operating in that space where I have the yips, I have this fear, I have this whatever, I can be there and I can go and operate and do that self-help, self-recovery, self-healing, if you will. Because you get to lose that rest and recovery. That's rest and recovery. If you do that and have that practice when it shows up, you don't need your shrink. Like you can tell Dayton Moore, I went and worked with my mental performance coach and had a discussion with somebody. You can stand up tall and look at that, and that's the leader of Dayton Moore setting up a system that works for mental health. That's how it should be.
I want to sort of understand what it was like when you had the yips. Like, go deeper. Like, I want to feel what that was like. Who are you throwing the ball back to? Were you was that the Jays, the Mets?
Well, I never threw. It was when the very first time I felt it. I slid in. This is where we think it. I slid in Toronto the week before, got hit my head, and felt like I was going to throw up. The next week, had a real bad foul ball that induced it. 2 days later, playing in the All Star game. Wow! Right? So dopamine goes like it hit a double to left and second base. I'm like, one more hit, I could be MVP. Think about the dopamine hit I'm taking. I remember a foul ball, and I went to throw it back, and that All-Star wasn't looking. And it like,
and that was just
this is a foul ball. Dead ball, I almost hit the guy in front of all these people. Like, think about how, like, I'm a nice person I am. It's a bad thing sometimes. Like, I would not want to do that. That put a mark in me somehow. I don't know, in my brain.
Wow.
Like, I just felt it. I didn't ever throw it away. And that's why I didn't, and you can look up some Seattle film because I know I had it during that.
I sort of remember. I don't remember. I think I might have mentioned it a couple times because I thought of Mackie Sasser. You were like throwing darts, just dear Lord, let it get there.
I had to either throw it 100 or because that little easy throw back I could throw it to the bases. And if people started inching off, I'd get so pissed, I'd click them off. I learned how to use it.
It's like a concussion, and you said dopamine hit. The next time that occurred, did you think, oh, this is now a thing I got to deal with? Like, because it was so sudden, an onset.
I think the only way I can feel it is, like, how you feel like like a nervousness feeling, like you get jittery or whatever. Have you ever had a panic attack?
Certainly anxiety. I've
You ever
never had
had
it.
one of those or nervous?
Not a
I'm
big
nervous.
one, but I
How about
yeah,
anxiety? Okay, how about anxiety before a talk or something? I'm talking to
definitely,
broadcaster, maybe
absolutely,
wrong thing to
absolutely.
say,
You
but
kidding me?
yeah. So so that little thing. Think about that, but if you look, like the breath is going to go out if you as soon as you let go of the ball, because who knows? Like that's like it was that every time. I never threw it away, but it would like physically took over me until like somebody pissed me off because they could see it, and the players are doing that, wham, because that emotion would take over. So now that I've kind of understand this and like leaned into this to learn to try to share, to work with other players that have it. If you knew the list of players that had some sort of throwing yips, you'd be amazed.
Yeah, Saxy
I
had
would
it.
say, oh yeah, I would say if you were gonna have, like, if you were gonna have a ball player be completely honest to you, if that's possible, he would tell you, oh, I've had it at some point.
Yeah,
And
you
how
almost
they were
have to,
able to
right?
deal and get over it. Oh yeah, that whether it was you threw it away, your dad yelled at you, so that's
Sure.
what it is. It just you didn't stick with you. And I think because where I went and I had that injury, I couldn't help it. Like my prefrontal cortex was bruised. It was swollen. That's what happens. I don't care if it's from beating down with stress of seeing terrible stuff, like some of the people we talk to, or going through terrible stuff, or experiencing terrible stuff. You can be fun, and it could be.
Well, I
your
remember
dad
just
yelling
playing
at you.
John with my dad
It's
at
your
the
dad
Poconos and
screaming.
Hemlock Farms in Pennsylvania, and throwing the ball because I was pretty erratic into the woods over his head. And Dad, you're God damn it, Jared, with the control, like. So when I took that,
Oh, dude, he was all over the place. He was all over the place, and he had some MPH on it too. But it was like, it
so
was
I don't
all
know
over.
if that caused. I don't know if I had yips, Dad, but
And here we are.
just
I think that might qualify. Hey, I had it too for a little bit. Freshman year of high school, and playing with
Yeah.
juniors and seniors, and I'm starting catcher, and I can't get the ball. But it was I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, I couldn't get it back. I mean, the same thing, John. I could throw it down to second. Somebody trying to get a bag and throw, 60 feet, a little less than 60 feet. Oh, can I roll it?
so
Can we bowl
It's
it back?
weird. I remember. I mean, just to be funny, I had cousins, catching instructor.
Right.
He put a bucket out on the mound. I'm at spring training at 4:00 in the morning, so nobody will see this.
Yo.
And then put a bucket out there on the mound, and I was just trying to throw them
Nice.
like play basketball in that thing.
Good for you.
That's how bad. It felt so good. Nobody around. It was weird. So that's how I started feeling and rewiring my brain back and
Oh,
learning
boy.
how to get back. And it's not like it's to rewire your brain. It's so much more possible than people think.
Neuroplasticity is something I'm very interested in. I talked to my brother about. Jordan, who's not on the pod with us, he's in school right now, but he had some concussions that post-traumatic stress maybe, but TBI issues over a number of years. And neuroplasticity, he and I have talked about a bunch. I wanted to ask you on the yips front, what about pitchers who can throw Ched to the plate but just can't throw it to first base? Is that kind of the same thing?
Yeah, because I think that's a feel thing, right? So that's a feel thing. So that when they go to throw, they're not in that same field that feels comfortable. They're in somewhere different. That throw that I'm going to throw, they feel. So already they feel something different. Your brain's already thinking. See, I'm already thinking it feels different. And I already know, and your brain just and that stopper on that, it won't stop. It's like if you ever obsessively think about it, it won't stop. You don't know how to stop it.
John, I know exactly what
And
you're talking about. Louis Castillo from the Mariners the other day fielded a squibber, third base side, ran to get it, and did his regular throw. It might be only the second or third time I've seen somebody do that from distance and accurately throw and get the out. And it's amazing how many scribbers go first base side and guys will underhand toss it. And I can remember so many
they don't
coaches
like it.
saying, "Hey, man, as long as he's throwing from the mound, he's good. Other than that, you're holding your breath."
Because they're operating in a like they're
Yeah, no doubt.
and then all of a sudden you want them. They can throw it 100 to first. I could have thrown 100 back to the pitcher. It's this weird feel thing that you're like. That's why some guys. I at least never had it to where I spiked it in the ground. I could just pump fake, make sure nobody was going, and then fluff it out there.
I can't tell you
I
how
was
many.
able to survive with mine, and it
Yeah.
was the most suffocating thing ever.
I would say out of every 10 times a pitcher has to throw a dude out at first, I'd say 7 times guys are underhand toss. Hey,
and I think that just shows because that's. I mean, David, it's just elaborate on it. That position, because you're at such a like pedal down,
no doubt,
thing while you're on there, you're and then stop and think, and then do something different. That's super hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super hard. The people that do it, like the Greenkeys and people, it's like, oh.
Wait, Maddox. Yeah, Maddox did. Yeah. Maddox, Jim Cott. Unreal.
That's the. So what they're activating in their brain, or they're steady. Like when I have the officers do the MMA fighting or shoot a free throw or a golf shot, they're activating that. They're learning how to kind of be superhuman, if they will. Like that's in us, and learning how to call upon the zone or flow state. That like we're all made to be amazing things. Like you can rewire your brain.
Not everybody's Chuck Knobloch, and it's it makes sense when you see the underhand toss to first base. I gotta before we get off this subject, I was interested. Who gave you, as you saw, because in the clubhouse, guys are vicious, can be, but it's with love, oftentimes camaraderie. But like when guys were going like this, making fun of you, who gave you the most shit amongst your teammates?
And that's the funny
nobody.
thing.
Okay.
That's nobody. That's maybe even the weird thing. Nobody, because it's such a thing. They don't want to catch it.
Hey man,
talk about it.
They also too, because like when we all just talked about this, everybody's been on it because they're like, I don't even want to plant the thoughts that might happen.
So that's one of the many superstitions,
that's
right
exactly
there.
Right.
Because it's such a
no, that's reality though.
Yeah, because also too, you also know, and it's all uniformly known inside the clubhouse. You don't want to be that guy that makes that guy have that.
Because you'll never live it down.
If Brad Osmus, the way I looked up to him, if he were like, "Kid, what the hell is wrong with you?" I would have had it right then when I was 15. We could have just, scratched the whole major league career, then getting it. I would have had it right then, because then, like I said, it could have been your dad. You induced that. And if you want to induce that at the highest level,
I want to be that guy.
The guy that's, what the hell are you doing? You're a big leaguer. We're all mental midgets. You see the lack of confidence in that clubhouse. Are you kidding? Yeah. They're the biggest mental midgets in the world. It's because we've been the greatest at something, and then everybody's told us we're the greatest, and then we're there.
Yeah.
And then, oh shit, I'm not.
And that's why every team has a mental health coach now, right? Just about everybody.
I think we're correct. Yes, that is true, Dave. I think it's in the collective bargaining agreement. Yeah, so I think that's why we're changing baseball. Putting that in there, I think that's a huge thing, and that's a step forward to like destigmatize that. So I think we can use sport to show that and do that relationship where we can.
Man, that's huge
because we're wired the way.
Yeah.
Performance is. There's a science behind it, and we know it. We operate better without reduced thoughts, and then thoughts in the direction we want to go. Think about what you want to be and where you want to go, not what you don't. That's pretty simple. And if you can kind of make a routine and a ritual out of that, you become a pretty decent ball player.
I wanted to ask you about the 7 teams you played for, 11 years. I mean, you made a lot of friends. You had a lot of laughs. You had your ups and downs. You made the All-Star team. Most fun experience you had on any? Pick one of those 7 teams. I mean,
I really enjoyed Miami, and this is when, and I wasn't doing very well.
Right.
that year because I had the big contract, didn't do very well. The yips showed up, funny enough, but it was, I think the people around it, like Burley and Josh Johnson and having Greg Dobbs, those are like people that were like, and Austin Kearns. Heck, I played against him when I was 16. Still chat with him every once in a while. Like when we went through those hard times, because we were more than baseball players. Those things that we talked about, how we dealt with things. Like I fall and think upon those more from a teammate standpoint. Toronto was the funnest playing on the field because I alluded to some of those things that were special. Right. As Joey Bats literally became Joey Bats, and Vernon continued to just be Vernon and awesome like he always did.
And well, heck of a player, man.
Yeah, it was pretty standard. He was going to be solid, and then having Lyle, like that felt like a team. Like, and that is why we won 90 games, still didn't make the playoffs, but I don't know how. You got Boston Yankees that year, so I mean that was the most special team I've been on. But far as family, I think it's Kansas City. If you look back on Kansas City, of amount of years I was there forever. Yeah. So like the Wathen family, the whole family, you know,
Duke, right?
From Dina to Duke to all of them, and then George and Alex and all the kids that I was part of raising or whatever, and they became these superstars, and now they're just still my same little buddies. I think that's family.
What was it like getting the call? Yeah. Like
they had a great system.
Remember watching NFL draft and families going nuts as they're getting the call, getting drafted. For you with the Royals, was there that kind of moment, or was it different?
It was funny because I was traded to the Royals from the Astros during a rain delay. So they're on the phone talking about Beltran. I was in this club. David DeJesus was in the other clubhouse.
Jersey guy. Yeah, we know him.
Yeah, from Hoboken, New Jersey.
Hometown over here, at least right now.
He was in that club. Yeah, that's why I brought that up for you, Jerry. So I put he was in that clubhouse. I was in that one. Beltran gets, they're talking about it on the thing. And everybody's like, Buck, you're out of here. They're talking about that kind of gig in the minor leagues. And our manager comes in, hey, Buck, got to talk to you. They're like, see ya. I remember meeting David DeJesus at the airport. Since then, I actually just talked to him on my drive over here. I was his best man in his wedding. Was there for him as him and his wife amicably departed, and still co-parent awesomely and friends with both of them. So to say
hey for me. Say hey
I
for
will.
me. Yeah.
I will. He is one of the he did some color for the Cubs for a while.
Yeah.
But, he's a stud of a person. I don't know if there's much better people than David DeJesus, but we became friends on that car ride from the stadium. Like, well, we're doing this. Here we go. And from that moment until still now, driving over here talking about how little Spidey's doing in his baseball game, how he's mad there's only one more left. So we've pretty much stayed solid the whole time since both getting called up. And that was the day that Beltran obviously vacated the spot for David, and I got traded for him. So that package deal. So that was the day I was called up. Pretty memorable.
Hey, let me ask you this: what did you think when the Mariners picked up the phone and brought you in?
I knew Zunino. So this is where I think started my transition, if you will, to where I think what I'm good at in life, making people better around you. I was dealing with my little yips thing, but yet I felt like pretty instrumental with Zunino with all his development, and as he kind of struggled with average at first, and I remember showing him my stats, being like, dude, it doesn't matter. Look what you're doing. I was an all-star, and you're better than me right now.
Yeah,
when I was with a Royal.
Yeah, he had the power, striking out a lot.
He
hit the home runs, but the average wasn't there. Yeah,
correct. And
good dude too.
He was the best, and he's another one still, talking with. So he was that experience with him because I knew I was coming in. it was the first time I wasn't starting.
Right.
And I knew I wasn't starting because the world knew I had this thing going on. And it was a thing that it felt good to make him better. Like
You
I said,
did.
My transition.
Belated applause, Bucky.
I think anybody could have. I think anybody could have done that job. But
No, but
not to.
It all worked.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of good Play-Doh there to build. So, and I think it was pretty much built before I even just suggested something.
You finished it off, just smoothed it out.
Yeah. But he was a stud and a leader. So that experience with him, I think, changed who I did. Being released by Seattle got me though. I was released on my birthday. You know that? On my birthday, I got released on my birthday. Yeah. But I deserve it.
I couldn't have waited a day, like happy birthday, Beast. And then
I know. But it was like, here. It was kind of my get back at them. I was like, you guys are going to do this today? And they're like, well, we got to, because we got to make, all right, tomorrow would have been good because it's my birthday today. So I was able to punch them a little bit. Like, if you're going to make me cry, I hope this hurts a little bit. And then we did go on a skid. Do you remember this? We went on a skid after I left. And this was one of the biggest moments of my career. This is where I felt like I can help a team. I can help people. I can help an organization. It was big. I got released on my birthday. I know it was because there's some baseball business stuff that was going on. I know that. That's a good part on my part. But I think when I left, having Cano, Felix, Zanino, Willie, all these guys going in there saying, hey, what's the deal? I'll give up my salary. Like, what is going on? And then we went on a skid. I didn't like seeing the guys on the skid.
Hey, man.
It felt good. It felt good because what I'm talking about, I was doing, like what we were talking about in Clubhouse. I did that job effectively. When I left, it was missed. That I was more than just the catcher, especially at that time. I'd never been, I'd only been running organizations. I'd never been a backup, especially to some kid, but luckily he was the best kid on the planet. Yeah. So I'd gratefully hand over the reins to him, but it validated the role of the backup and what I was, that it was extremely important. So then when I did get picked up by the Angels, I became that to Ionetta and was able to run that role there and help with game plans and really felt confident with that role over there to where I played good again and ended up, I got to play. Social let me play in this last series against us at Seattle that season, because they had to sweep us to get to go to the 1-game playoff. And Social goes, hey, I know why this series is yours. Go ahead. And we luckily won that first game. We got a couple knocks, but
it's got yours.
Hey. No question. Yeah. No.
There you go.
But I'm still proudly wearing my favorite
Amen.
jersey.
Rock on.
Well, I love that you said it, substantiated, validated your veteran leadership. And that's something that you now see as being very regular in terms of decision-making, a regular part of decision-making on front offices with roster management.
Well, I think too is where data is more and more involved in that. Like, I think there was a call last night that I was watching. Maybe it was a college game. They gave back the run because it was the Padres, because Machado was on and he hit. They went because of the personality, knowing who he is. It's not showing up statistics. They actually were going to lose the game. They were 82% to win the game, 80% after doing this route. You know how the statistics. But that solely was going on how he knew Machado and how this and that and what I'm talking about, that mojo in the clubhouse or knowing and having your pulse on your teammates. That's knowing that. That's that difference. That's that, like we were saying, Dave, when you have that in the clubhouse, when you know everybody's pull and it's this special thing and you just know, that's that. That's what those.
I want to hear about something different. The bus. I want to hear about the bus. I've heard this story now a number of times, and I wish I was there to see it. But as I understand it, in 2014, my dad, you guys called him into the bus and weren't too happy with him. I would love to hear that story from your recollection.
I'll hear his version of it.
I remember, because me and Dave were tight, so I think the other guys saw that I was always talking to him on the flights, right? And so there was, I don't know, who was it? Who was the player? I don't even remember.
What triggered it was I'd been on MLB Network that afternoon, and they said, "Who's your first half Cy Young Award winner?"
Right.
I said, "Well, I don't be a homer on national TV." And I said, "Masahiro Tanaka with the Yankees." And oh my God, I get back to the clubhouse. Seager and Zanino want to rip my freaking head off. And then I didn't think it even.
I do remember this now.
Right. So even Shannon Drayer was pissed.
Masahiro Tanaka.
I don't think it's fly from Houston. Tanaka. And Ryan Stiles, who was on the equipment.
Masahiro Tanaka.
Guy, now with the Giants. Yeah. Great guy. So we landed Midway Airport, right? And he goes, "Hey, boys want to see you on the bus." And I'm thinking, you freaking kidding me? What the hell is this all that? So now, Bucky, pick it up from there. Walk up to the bus.
So he walks on the bus, and I had this thing where the team, like I have a bunch of jerseys now signed up, and you've seen Jarrett, where it's down at the bottom, like Felix wrote this cool message, and Cano or whatever, and all of them, have it on there, and Seager's, and at the bottom it always says woo woo. So if I get an agreeing from the team that we're all in agreement, I say, "Hey boys, can I get a woo woo?" And they get a woo woo. So Dave came on the bus, and I said, we got the best pitcher on the planet. Felix, go ahead and stand up. I'm sure I made a mockery of it, Would you like to apologize to the greatest pitcher on the planet for not voting for him? Or, just call them out fun-wise like you do in the clubhouse. "Boys, can I get a woo-woo?" And I think it was the windows off the bus. Because all the boys, "No, woo-woo!" And they were screaming at him, "Woo-woo!" So they were all giving the loudest woo-woos they could to let him know that we thought we had the Cy Young, which I think he did go on to prove you wrong, right?
I think he'd won it the year or two before. He finished second or third, but he had a hell of a year.
Golly.
So,
dude, that was special, wasn't it? He was on a roll there for a little bit.
No doubt. But the bus thing, though, I can't remember. Somebody said something. I don't know, it was Fernando Rodney. Mm-hmm. And how can you say that? I said, listen, I have to wipe my mouth after every broadcast. I've been covering for you guys. What are you fucking kidding me? Come on, get the hell out. Hey, he says, I'll challenge you. He said something about, "I'll throw a ball at your head." I said, "Get a fucking bat. Let's do it. Let's do it." And I went crazy. I was like, "Fuck you guys. Fuck you guys." So afterwards, we get to the hotel, right? Mike Blowers, my partner, he could see that it was all of this going on, right? So he's waiting, says, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." So I shook everybody's hand as they got off the bus. And I even hugged Felix and gave him a kiss on the cheek. I said, "Hey, man, no harm, no foul." And just laughing at him. And you talking about the energy was like this, right? Mm-hmm. So then I go inside the bar, and I'm like, "Jack, I told them fucking guys, hey, you fuck with me. I'm from New York and Philly. Fuck you guys." That whole thing, right? And Joe Beimel comes over. Hey, he says, "Hey, man, you drink tequila?" Because that was some of the best shit I've ever seen in my life. I said, "I do now." And I had a tequila shot with Joe Beimel.
He's a good one, too. See, that clubhouse was awesome. Dude.
Yeah.
He would have, here's Joe Beimel, the guy that had a tequila with you.
A left-hander.
A left-hander. And we listened to our pregame song for that year. It got us all jacked. Was "Hello."
Adele. Okay.
Yeah. Wow, really?
Oh yeah, they'll be blaring it.
That was your song?
Dude, it was like this quiet, calm. Dude, all I know is Felix would go out and just murder hitters. He would just cut them down. He would hear that. "Hello." You send that now to Beimel, he gets jacked. Yeah.
I will.
You send that to him. He'll love it. He'll love it. It's like the funniest. You see like 25 guys get jacked off of a song, like, yeah, let's go kill someone. And, it's like,
And that song, I
it's
thought you
not
were
the
going to.
response everybody else gets.
I would think you would said AC/DC, Van Halen, something like that,
Nope.
right? How
No,
about
it
that?
was
Hello.
by Adele. Yeah, talk about a psychological trick right there.
Oh,
See, my high school coach did a little something similar to that. He did a. Do you know that song? Do you believe in magic?
yeah, great song, John Sebastian, Love and
Yeah.
Well, that's my
So,
era.
So we'd have these magic shirts. Make a greater individual commitment was magic, right? And we were sold out on this thing. So here's part of the thing. This is like how what Joe Bimelson is. We understand what that means and what they're saying, and we're calmly getting locked in to go kick your butt. Do you believe in magic?
Yeah,
right before you go out
great
to the football game,
Yeah.
and we're playing Kearns and Hunter that have 20 Polynesians as they go down. Kill, buck. No, that's what they're saying. So they're rolling into the stadium. They hear, "Do you believe in magic?" And you could see them laughing at our song, and we're over there just like, yeah, this song gets me jacked. So songs have always been like pregame songs. I think music is the gateway to the zone. Those are just two very unique ways to get into the zone. So the unique in my athletic career, and from "Do you believe in magic" to "Hello," they both did the same thing.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. Another thing, you have such a broad spectrum in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You've done a lot of good stuff for the Players Association. And tell me about the story with the T-shirt sales, the lizard skins, Big Poppy and that whole thing. What up with that?
So lizard skin, how it kind of blew up. So lizard skin was made, like they brought this grip to me. There was one side, real thick, and it was black and red. He just brought me this big thick, and I put it on, hitting in my cage.
You put it on your bat. You put it on your bat.
Yeah, brought it on my bat. So he brought it over. He said, "Will you look at this?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Hit with it, and I was like, "Look, if you want, this would be my suggestion. Make it thinner, and then we're all prima donnas. This needs to have my name on it. I want to have camo. If you can make fluorescent yellow, it would be great." Right? So
Marcelo Ozuna.
Yeah, we made 3 blends, and I got a story for you. We made 3 kind of levels of blends: 05, 07, whatever, right? And 08. So those are the different gauges. And then, do you remember Captain America?
Oh God, are you kidding?
With David Wright, and then
with the Mets, with the Mets,
And then we had Matt Harvey
Dark
with
Knight.
The Dark Knight.
Dark. So even that emblem that my cousin drew, we were doing all that T-shirt. We brought the T-shirt stuff, and then there was another one which I gave him and Uncle Scott Boris, that logo, free of charge. NIL's here, by the way. I should have just held on to it.
You ain't lying.
Anyways, so I gave him that. Here's the other one was so Robinson Cano always came in and told Kyle Seager, "Hey, fatty, hey, you're fat. Be careful, you're fat." And he was like, "Kyle, this is young Kyle." And Kyle's like, "Buck, man, he's wearing me out." I said, "I got you, kid. I got you." I said, "I'll bring a box tomorrow. You just got to make sure we wear it." I got a box of T-shirts. I put a Babe Ruth, a heavy set Babe Ruth, in the middle, and I put "Fat Guys Rake." So fat guys, I had him embrace. So I had the silhouette of Babe Ruth, who's fat, and it said "Fat Guys Rake." And I said, "Go give this T-shirt to Robinson Cano. No longer he'll tease you. He'll think it's a cool thing." And he wore that Cano wore that every day underneath his shirt for BP over his pullover. Him and Kyle Seager would wear that "Fat Guys Rake" shirt, and I think
now I know the story. All right.
Yeah, so that's the reason. And so the T-shirts and stuff, I would do that to kind of use it to morale and give the T-shirt. I had this thing called Clubhouse Tees, because you remember 7 Line, which I know you know 7 Line.
Yeah, absolutely, with the Mets,
T-shirt. So all that was kind of happening when I was kind of in the licensing. So that's why I fought for my helmet and did some things. So I knew if we had this product kind of got involved with, I just was interested in it because I made this product better in my cage. And what if I make a product that was like the tennis shoe? I thought.
Yeah.
So we were in spring training, going from the half filled to the 12 pack, and we get there and shaking out our gloves. And I was like, hey, we need to have like a glove case or something. So I created a glove case. So any of the EVA shield that goes on, you see in any of the backpacks or anything.
Yeah.
So for a couple more years, I get my little residuals on that for anything that's on the EVA thing, because I got into the licensing and entrepreneurial and all that right at the end when I was playing. So when I did the lizard skin, so I kind of dove into that and would use T-shirts as like a way to kind of connect everybody in the clubhouse and call them clubhouse tees.
And a lot of people do that too.
John, I know, maybe more than the average bear here in terms of your background with making the teas and your entrepreneurial pursuits. Could you please dive a little deeper? I'd love for you to talk about sort of what you've learned, both good and bad, from your experiences in terms of protecting yourself as an athlete, certain things that maybe athletes don't think of because your whole career is in the box and training, business-wise, maybe some things that escaped you that you learned the hard way. And then also on the positive side, things that have worked out for you in a way that you're really pleased with, both.
Okay. I'll see how I answer this. One, I love business in baseball. I knew I was going to be more than a baseball player, right? Because it wasn't going to last forever. Even after you coach, wasn't going to last forever. I'm a catcher. We like equipment, right? So into gear and stuff like that. The grip thing stirred me and taught me like, I can do this. Making a product made it like, I can do business inside of this, because I had sold it off to Lizard Skin. So I'd sold the glove case to Lizard Skin sold to Marucci, and still with all this EVA stuff, it got me into it, right? I believe the next product, is everybody's actual name, image, likeness is themselves. You just saw
Perfect
a deal
Game
done with Fanatics and Perfect Game.
Well,
what do you think they're going after? I think, and I've done this already in the past. I've made content. I've put out instructional. Let's just stay in this instructional lane. Your brain can take this wherever you want. I say something. I look somewhere, and if you get that vantage point of me, I'm giving you answers to a test. I believe that camera view, say Zanino. I taught him, look there. Look at your first and third base coaches. Look at that manager, especially Joey Cora, because he's the one calling shots, not Ozzy. And then, so see what I mean? I'm telling answers that are going on. That's clickable. That's an asset. That'll be something that gets bought. Is the fact that I'm giving real life experience will be something very unique now, because everything's digitally done and all this data and everything. And the data that I put out, that's mine. I should have this. We have Shani Atahi or whatever. He's no longer a pitcher. That data that we knew was inside of there, that is his to keep quiet. There was a small percentage of the world that knew when he was going to blow out. They knew from a month to the T. You're telling me, parents, if I were you, I would not sign that contract. You're giving those rights away, that data away to people. They're going to make life decisions. They're going to keep or spend or give you millions of dollars if they have that data.
Data, and also certainly it's not just exit velo, but it's your media. Your media is also data, and it's hugely valuable in the youth perspective. I think that's why Fanatics did that deal, and it's not just for collectibles, because it's the easy thing to think of trading cards or digital trading cards, NFTs, but the media, the highlights combined with all of the home to first, pop time, exit velo, all of that stuff is a fingerprint on who an athlete is. I think that's largely valuable. I do want you to go back, though, your younger self getting into all these different business pursuits. What would you have advised yourself on? Like, what would you have said? Hey, look out for this. Because I know we've had our chats, and I've said to you, like, make sure you paper your deals. Like,
well, I think too. I think the reason have been able to move and push some of these stuff in baseball at a super high level is because I knew the rules and nooks and crannies. Painted helmet. There's no licensing, Dell. I got grandfathered in because I used my name, image, and likeness, because those were getting auctioned off for service dogs for special needs and autism kids. I told Wilson in Major League Baseball, hey, I got this going on. You going to pay for this from now on? And they were like, oh, grandfathered in. And I'm like, oh, all right, I have rights. I have things to go on. So now you have rights. This, we're doing this right now. I'm adding value to this because of life experience through the major leagues, right? And the yips and that. There'll be value to that. That's data or metadata, as I've been taught, right, by the smarter men than me. That metadata that I'm giving out, there's a value proposition on that. Just like the lizard skin or the box I made. If I can make a product about where I'm looking, because I know that's what baseball tried to come do. They're trying to, I want to be able to level the playing field for, like Dave, I said, I got with the Ford family with Rise to Greatness, leveling the playing field. I go and create opportunities where they can create data and metadata.
Yes.
Find out who this kid is. There's a kid here, he's a straight A student, doesn't have the money to go to PG tournaments, doesn't have the money to go to, whatever tournament where they have the money for this data and stuff like that. So we're going to take it to them, create data for them, and also opportunities to say, hey, this is who I am as an individual. I play a little baseball, but I'm into, I don't know, math or doctor or, who knows?
Right.
Just giving some of these kids opportunities, all they need. And they're some of the smartest people in the world, and just being able to create more opportunities for baseball to broaden those horizons. I think digitally owning your own name, image, and likeness is going to be a way that happens. I think that's going to be the way the scouting department goes, recruitment goes, and coaching, because I believe that having this name, image, and likeness and this data, the sharing of data, see it in podcasts. Everybody has their podcast. I know that I set out to demonstrate and did a podcast to prove a point to Major League Baseball and to whatever. That podcast, when I did it, it's me. It's me. It's only me on there and the people I called in. I did not own that. I'm happy that it happened that way, but I didn't own it.
Yeah. What did you feel comfortable sharing? Could you, sort of expand upon that and what you learned from that experience?
Yes. So I had to go to this individual and say, hey, you own this by paper. You own this because we did this way and you did this and you're the producer. Like, I didn't realize the value. I was just having fun doing a podcast. Same reason everybody was doing it. And I was doing it to show that this could go on this way. Like, it could prove the point. It did. It increased, and it had value so much so that this person said, this is mine. And I'm not giving up the value of this. And I was like, whoa. All right, I've got to do this. And this is where Jarrett and I say, hey, you start making sure your paper. Okay, I understand all these things I did care about, but I didn't realize just this right here, me vomiting this information, that's valuable. And people and brands will pay for that. And now that if you do that in a collective, as the universities like to call them now, you do a collective in a certain, you can make a huge impact. And also, like, for example, my healing through hitting pilot and then going to the level up performances, all them I've looked into using NIL deals to have those young men come share those experiences, because it also enhances the experience. And so having that NIL, that's a value for me. And I'm an old big leaguer. I want them to hear what these current college kids are going, because they're feeling what I'm talking about right now. And then they can talk about that at the tee with them. When they're just talking about hitting, they're not talking about hitting. They're talking about how we all talked about having the yips and how we dealt with it today. That conversation gets started with a NIL deal from a kid from the University of Utah or BYU or whoever.
Yeah. Hey,
And I think that's really the value for the NIL, because now that player is valuable to their community, and now it gives some real fluidity to a big donor coming in and say, hey, we want to create these opportunities because of this. Yes, I paid for a scholarship, but we're paying for these type of kids for scholarship. Look at these things they're doing. And I point to Deion Sanders. He's doing it right.
Oh, my
He's
goodness.
playing it forward.
Yeah.
Look at his platform. He is the man who he is. If you don't like it, get off the bus.
Yeah. I saw an ad yesterday on our air about the sunglasses company he's involved with. I was on a pregame show, and I was on radio last night, and I looked at, whoa, and there's Deion and everything, man. And it's just cooking.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, he's smart. He is super intelligent, smart in this arena. You look at some of the boxers that have expressed this, right? You are your own brand. This is very real for every ball player. Now, I thought that. I put in a action to exercise it, and in some certain ways, things bit me, and I got bit. Luckily, had people around me that would save it. We just fixed it, and it's all right, and things are moving forward. But if, I don't suspect that kids nowadays are going to have people around them like I do.
Kids at 15 now have business managers and, say, brand approaches and talk to my business managers, but they got to paper their deals the right way and make sure that they have good people around them who have their best interests in
Boy.
mind.
PBR right now, you got to basically, if you want your own data, I think you got to get an agent or representation to not sign that deal. I don't know. That's
wow.
It seems where it needs
It's
to
a
be
different.
right now.
It's a different world, and this has changed quickly in the last few years. Hey, I want one more thing I want to touch on about catching. You played at the highest level for 11 years. I caught in high school, caught in college, and I was always, the two-leg, especially with a man on first. You got to be ready to move left, right, and be able to throw. But now they got guys on one leg, even with I doing the Tony Pena doing what I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
When Tony Pena did it. And now everybody's doing it. They want to get that low end of the strike. But I've seen too many pass, I don't say a lot, but I've seen enough pass balls that have cost teams runs or advance in 90 feet. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I take it down to a numbers thing, right? Because if it's a pass ball, just like that 80% to 82%, how many balls is he getting strikes? Is his 16% that everybody's fighting, is it 21%? I'll take it. Right? Is he picking out and throwing maybe 3% higher because one does stay low when it gets by him? I do like I think the catching position. It'll create more longevity for catchers. I think if you watch the way Perez, being the biggest, oldest catcher right now, if you see him when he's able to do it, the way he cheats his body to set up, that helps for longevity. I do like the look that it gives you, because at first I was big, traditional, right? But then when my own son started catching, he's a middle infielder, and I said, all right, I've taught him gymnastics and do all this stuff, and I see that, I wish I would have done that, because I think it would have made me keep up with the guy like Yadi, because I was a big guy, but I didn't get to show off some of my athleticism because I was stuck to being the standardized. Where if I was able to move both ways, I would have done it. Now, the guys that are getting away, I think that may be them just not acknowledging their left foot up or right foot, maybe turn in a little more. I think evaluating that, but I do like them moving a little bit more. I was hesitant to at first, Dave, because catchers, we're stubborn and traditional, right? But I do see the stats in receiving on certain angles on the corners that I like. That I've definitely made my son take upon that. I don't teach as much on the ground, but I definitely work. I like their hands and their eyes to be more objective, to manipulate underneath the ball. I don't like it. I think if you're starting on the ground and working up, I think that's a sign saying, hey, I don't have good hands. I need to do this. That's me as a catcher. I like being there, more of a Munto roll into it, not a on the ground weeders type thing. I think that he did that because he was bigger and needed to.
6'6", 6'5", something like that. Yeah.
And his hands got better because of that, because it helps. I like it when you're a little bit in between that. I think that's perfect. I think that's the perfect, and I think that's what Munto is. That's where some of these cats. That's obviously you could see the way Yadi moved when he moved. Oh. That's how they able to receive the ball, cut down on the minimal effort things, simple, stupid, and catcher, less is more on the movements for us, and still be able to be strong and balanced. I think those positions are creating that.
Hi, everybody. Dave Sibbs from the Hey Now podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us here on the Hey Now podcast.
I can't